Okay, hello there, and welcome to ChazzyBurger's tutorial on Dominions 4 Thrones of Ascension. Now, I'm really happy to be doing this. I've just finished my first series of Let's Plays, which you can see on my channel if you'd like. And I thought I'd go into Dominions and I'd start to pick apart some of the game's mechanics for newer players who are wanting to try and get into it. Now, Dominions 4 is a very in-depth turn-based strategy. It's going to take a long time for anybody to really learn its systems. I myself am still learning new things about the systems every single day that I play. So you're going to have to go into the long haul. Now, the thing I always say to anybody who starts out playing Dominions 4 or any other game that's this in-depth is, you suck. But don't worry, everybody sucks. This is a game where everything is so in-depth, and the amount of times that conflicting mechanics can come across each other that almost nobody can know absolutely everything there is to know about the game. So don't even worry about it just now. You just start off, start learning, and start having a little bit of fun with it. Now, I personally love Dominions 4 because it's got so many different options of how you can play it, because it's got a very in-depth single-player campaign, it's got multiplayer, it's got lots of modding support. So I really think that anybody who wants to try out this game, or is even interested in just seeing it in action, stay tuned. We're going to go through everything. We're going to try and be nice and slow about it. I'm going to stop talking quite so fast. But anyway, let's go. So when you start a new game, you of course go to the Create New Game button. Now here you can see the maps screen. Now this is where you can choose which map you want to play on. There's a very large array of predetermined maps. Ones are already loaded in. You can download new maps that people have created, or you can create a completely random map every single time that's either small, medium or large. Now what this means is how many provinces are going to be in that game. For example, on a small random map there's about 10 provinces per player, medium 15, large there's going to be about 20. Now provinces are split into two major categories. First, there's land provinces, and then there's sea provinces. Now just because a race either starts in the sea or starts off in land does not mean they can never go into the sea or onto land. It just basically means their starting point. Now land itself is probably the most favourable out of the two. Land has got a lot more varied terrain types than the sea does. Sea provinces are usually larger, which means you don't get quite as much territory as you would do on land, but these are more high level things to worry about. You don't have to worry about that right now. Anyway, for our first game, I would recommend that you guys pick this map down here. It's one of the preloaded ones that comes with the game, called Talus. Now, Talus is a small map suitable for a game between two opponents and an aquatic nation too, if you'd want. So we're going to click OK. This is what the map's going to look like. This is as good as the graphics get, I'm afraid. Dominions 4 is a very kind of old-timesy sprite-based game. Don't let the graphics fool you. It's got a very nice graphical kind of like look to it. I personally really enjoy it, but it's mostly the reason the graphics aren't quite as good as your AAA shooter is because the amount of mechanics and stuff it has to process in the background is so immense that you just can't really you couldn't do that if you had a lot of high rendering CPU options. So yes, we're going to start on Talus. I'm going to enter a game name, so I'm going to call this game Tutorial, because this is what it is. You can call your games whatever you want, that's how it's going to be saved as. So if you call it Tutorial, when you go back to the Play Existing Game button, you just have to click on Tutorial, Play Game, and you'll be in that game. Now, when you start the game, you have to select what area you are in. Every age is very different. In an early age, for example, think of it just kind of like the Bronze Age, or the Iron Age. Yeah, mostly the Bronze Age, sort of around the time where the Greek Empire is kind of mostly at play, or the Egyptian Empire, for example, that kind of time period. The Middle Ages is more kind of Romanesque. I mean, there is actually Romans in the early age, surprisingly, but the Middle Age is more kind of like just slightly after the Romans, and then the Late Age is kind of like the feudal era almost. Almost, not quite. You know what I mean. Basically, the earlier the age, the more powerful magic is, the more abundant magical races are. For example, giants, or elves, or dwarves, or skin changers, etc. The later the age, the less magic that's sort of natural in the world. You know, races start to die out. People that were once giants have shrunk to a sort of diminutive size from what they used to be. But most people are a lot more advanced technologically. So before, where they would be fighting with no armor and a spear and a wooden shield, they'd now be fighting in full plate mail, with a sword and shield, riding on a horse, charging into battle that way. So we're actually going to start in the early ages, which is what I would recommend for any new player, because if you start in the early ages, you can choose one of the nations that are more forgiving to newer players. Now, by that, what I mean is, if you pick, say, a very man-based nation, for example, was one of the races that I picked for one of my Let's Plays. They are quite unforgiving to new players because their troops, on a sort of one-to-one basis, aren't as good as say a giant is. So your human would never be able to take on a giant by himself, because the giant is stronger, has more hit points, does more damage, etc, etc. Now, when you start to get into a bit more high-level play, you'll sort of find out that the giant nations are at a disadvantage because their troops cost a lot. They cost a lot of gold, they can cost a lot of resources. So you can kind of like almost outmass and just kind of Zerg swarm all these men to tire out the giants and eventually beat them down. But you will take a lot of damage in the process, but you will probably cause more cost to the enemy than you will yourself. Now, we don't really have to worry about that for just now. So we're going to start off with, we're going to pick Nifflheim. Nifflheim is a race of very large frost giants. And they're one of the people that I would recommend anybody who's new to the game take. The other ones I'd recommend would be Nifflheim or Helheim. Maybe even Abyssia. Abyssia is kind of like a race of flame demons, so they're pretty cool. They've got pretty strong infantry, a lot of armor, etc, etc. Hinnom's another good one because they've got giants. Ur's another good one for giants. Basically, you want any kind of nation who has very strong infantry, who doesn't require a lot of micromanaging spellcasters or units. I would definitely say stay away from Kalem when you're first starting. Now, Kalem are like a race of winged humanoids, and they are very hard to play because they usually kind of revolve around sneak tactics, or flying in, raiding a province and flying back out. But we're not going to go into that for now, so we'll go into Nifflheim. Don't worry if I keep saying that we won't go into this just now. We will, of course, go into it at some point. There's no way I would let us play through Dominions without properly trying to explain every single thing I can. It's just that if I tried to explain every single thing I could at the time where I couldn't show you an example, it might confuse you, and I'd probably confuse myself. I prefer to be able to show you things when we have the ability to show them. So here you'll see there's an option for a disciple game. Now, disciple games are not recommended for new players. What disciple games mean is people are put onto teams. Usually when you don't play a disciple game, everybody is against each other. All of the nations are fighting to put their god on the throne as like the one true god. In a disciple game, let's just click it now to see, everybody gets set on teams. Now, if I was to do this, and everybody's on team 1, what happens is you can only have one person on a team have a pretender god. Everybody else will be a disciple of that god. Now, what that means is, yes, you do have people backing you up, you have allies, but you will not be able to, unless you are the one to be a pretender god, you will have to choose a not quite as strong pretender. So I would definitely not recommend this. I might actually do a video on disciple games, how to set them up, etc, etc. But for now, we'll just leave it. I would recommend that you keep your AI level at normal. Don't go any higher. If you go higher, they start to cheat a little bit and they get more resources. Don't really get any stronger. You can choose your AI type: standard, defensive, aggressive, or random. You know, you just kind of see what happens. You can also choose what nation you want them to play if you really want to, or you can just leave it on random, see what happens, you know, have a little bit of fun. I think we're just going to leave it on random for now. So let's start. Nifflheim, the Sons of Winter. Now, I'll let you read the flavor text and I'll keep this up. Pause the video if you want to, but down here is where they really sort of tell us the important things. The race, we're very cold resistant, we need a lot of supplies, and we prefer cold scale +3. I'll go into that at the next screen. Our military, Nifflheim giants, giant infantry. We've got our magical paths: water, blood, death, nature, astral, and and a little bit of air. Our priest strength is average, and our dominion spreads cold. So that's a good thing to know. Now, the first thing you will see here is, well, this is your pretender screen. Now, the first thing you should take notice of is this. These are your design points, 420 blaze it. Now, design points are the amount of points that you have to give your pretender either certain skills or certain abilities in his dominion, or even who your pretender is. Now, right now we've been randomly selected to have, I think that's a Master Enchanter. Yes, I thought it might have been a Druid, you know, because of the green clothes, but no, that's a Master Enchanter. Now, he is different from any of these physical forms here. Now, if you want to change your physical form, you left click on the picture, or you can left click here on the select physical form. If you right click, you'll actually get a little bit of a description about them. For example, you know, a little bit of flavor text, their stats, etc. We'll go into stats in a different part of the tutorial, because it would be a lot of things to take in if I tried to explain stats to you, and a little bit about magic and physical forms and scales and design points. So we're going to leave off stats for a little bit. Now, when you're selecting your pretender, there are 4 major different types. For example, you've got your static types, your monument types. These are things, for example, like this tree here, Urmasil. Now, these beings, they cannot move. They're completely immobile. Well, they cannot move normally, I should say. They can use various spells that you can research to fling them about the map. They can teleport, they could cloud trapeze, etc, etc. And these will let you teleport them to different places, but they could never move on the map by themselves. They'll never get up and walk. So you can choose from a variety of things like trees, different monuments, a fountain of blood if you want. The second type of pretenders are Titans. Now, Titans are massive giants. For example, look at the son of Nifflheim. You can see they've actually got, like, most of the time they'll have something like a size 6. These are going to be really powerful in combat, and quite powerful in magic as well. They will not be the best early game, but they're definitely very powerful contenders, and they can definitely do a lot. Your second type is going to be monsters. Horrible monsters that, you know, can do a lot of damage early game. They might not be the best spellcasters, but they have very dangerous forms early game. For example, let's have a look here. The Son of Fenrir. The Son of Fenrir is a massive wolf, you know, has a lot of hit points, does a lot of damage. It has this thing here called Fear. Fear of 10. So what that does is every turn, anybody in a area effect of Fear 10 has to do a morale check, otherwise they will run away. Now, things like this, these kind of sort of magical creatures, they are usually very, very good for taking provinces early, because you can scare off militia and other such armies quite easily without taking much damage yourself. Basically, they're for early expansion. Monument, for example, usually doesn't cost as much, are usually quite powerful in terms of dominion and magic, so they're going to be really powerful spellcasters, researchers, etc, etc. But they're never really going to do anything in combat other than cast spells, because well, they can't move, they can't really do anything. They can maybe attack, you know, like the tree can attack things with its branches, etc, but nothing really spectacular. Now, your final chassis of pretender are mages. Now, mages are usually, not always, but usually very weak in combat. They don't have a lot of hit points. They can be sometimes quite old, but they do have a bonus. They are very good at magic. Now, they don't start off usually with very high magical paths, but for example here you can see that this Great Sage has only 1 level in Astral Mage. However, he can start new magical paths at a cost of only 10 design points per path. If we go back to our Titans and have a look here, for example the Son of Nifflheim, it costs 60 points. So for the cost it takes to learn 1 new magical path, you could learn 6 with the Great Sage. Now that's pretty good. Father Winter 60 again. These creatures will usually have a very high magical path cost. For example, the Son of Fenrir has 80, whereas this tree, for example, has 60. So usually, you know, it's kind of way to see how do I want my pretenders to be. Do I want them to be, you know, really good in one type of magic? Do I want to be really good at lots of type of magic? And these are strategies that we call, you know, either focusing or rainbow pretenders. Rainbow pretenders are people that can just do anything. You know, they have lots of levels and all different kinds of magical paths. Not necessarily the highest, but they have enough magical paths that they can do a lot of crazy things if they want to. They can forge a lot of items, or you can get them very strong in one specific path. Let's see what happens there. So for this tutorial, we're actually going to pick the Son of Niffle because he gives us a lot of physical stats. He's very strong in combat. And he starts off with reasonable magic paths. Now, there are several magic paths in the game, so I'll go through them for you. There's for the fire path, air path, water path, earth path, astral path, death path, nature path, and blood path. Now, all of these paths have their own spells that can either be solely from their path, or it can be in conjunction with a different path. And each path works by having their own gems. For example, the fire path will have fire gems, the air path will have air gems, etc, etc. The only difference is blood. Blood magic does not work on gems. Blood magic works off a thing called blood slaves. Now, blood slaves are gotten by hunting through your provinces and finding pure virgins to keep drugged up so you can sacrifice them to demons to summon horrible, horrible things. Every other thing has gems, and gems can be kind of intertwined. It's a system called Alchemy. So, and the main cornerstone of Alchemy is this magic here, Astral. Astral gems, the cost of 2 Astral gem, can be transformed into 1 gem of any other type. And at the same time, 2 gems of any type can be transformed into 1 Astral gem. So it's quite a low conversion rate unless you have a lot of Astral gems. And even still, you're only going to get half the gems that you put in. And if you're transforming it from 1 gem to a different type, you're going to get a fourth of what you put in. It's really up to you if you think it's worth it. Now, when it comes to actually getting points for your magic paths, the initial cost, if you want to start for a new path, will be the new path's cost, 60. If you want to increase your path that you already know by 1 level, it's going to cost 8 points. If you want to increase it to a second level, it's going to cost 16 points. Now, this is not in total. Every new path you go up, so the first time you put up a path, it'll be 8. You take off 8 design points. Second time you put it up, it'll be 16, so you take off 16 points. You've now actually spent 24 points to raise it by 2 levels. Now, if you wanted to raise it a third time, that would cost 24 points. You've now costed it, well, quite a lot. 32. No, more than that. 48. You've cost 48 points to raise it by 3. And the costs keep mounting over and over and over again until eventually it becomes incredibly expensive to even raise it. For example, if we went back to level 3, so we've cost 48 points, then it's going to cost us 32, and then 40, and then 48, etc, etc. It all works by the 8 times table. Now, any of you paying attention will notice a thing down here, bless effects. Now, bless effects are something that happen at the start of the game. When you're creating your pretender, any magic path that is over 4 will give your god's bless a specific, how to explain it, a specific kind of bonus. Now, blessed troops are very powerful troops that follow your god. They cost half as much gold to upkeep. They can get very powerful blesses. They automatically get a +1 morale when blessed. That's really good. And yeah, usually your kind of your best troops. The best troops you can get are usually the ones that are blessed. Not necessarily. Sometimes blessed troops are just far too expensive for them to be worth it. But other times, they're actually fairly good. Now, every single magic path has a different bless. If we put 4 points in fire magic, that gives every blessed person an attack scale +2. Now, there's different levels of bless. So you go up to 4, and you start with a basic bless. If you raise it by 2, you get a better bless. If you raise it to 8, you get an even better bless. If you raise it to 9, you get a completely new and powerful thing. Very sorry if you could hear that. Now, at level 9, things get very very powerful in comparison to what they were before. For example, if we were just at level 4, we would only get attack skill plus 2. If we went to level 6, we get attack skill plus 3. If we went to level 8, we get attack skill plus 4. If we go to 9, we get flaming weapons. So what happens is all of our blessed troops, the weapons will suddenly light on fire, and they will do fire damage to anybody close to them. Which is a little bit better than just having attack skill. Now that's only for fire. If we go for air, let's have a look. So if we get 4 in air, we get precision plus 2, which means our troops hit things easier with missiles, and their missile range is increased by plus 20. Increase it again. Now air is quite a strange one, because each time you increase it, your missile range actually goes up by 5%. It's one of the few ones that does that. So you can see it's getting quite better. You got plus 1 precision at level 6, missile range plus 30. Then it goes up to precision 4, missile range plus 40. And then, if you go up to 9, you get air shield. Now air shield, what it does is it kind of deflects arrows and such. So at air shield 80% of the time, it will deflect any kind of air magic coming towards you. Not air magic, arrows. Whereas water, if you go to 4, defense skill plus 2. 6, defense skill plus 3. Level 8, defense skill plus 4. And what defense skill is the chance that you'll be able to parry or block your opponent's attacks. So it's a little bit different to attack skill. Now there's a bit more to combat than just attacking and defending, and then attacking and defending. There's a lot more to it than that, so we won't go into it now. What we're going to do is we're going to wait until we go a little bit more into units, a little bit more into stats, and then we're going to start explaining that. So if we go to level 9 in water, you get quickness. Now quickness means you can attack twice per turn, whereas before you can only attack once. So it's quite a powerful thing. So if you go for water, you know, people are going to be very they're going to move a lot faster, they're going to be able to attack twice, they're going to be able to defend themselves really well. You know, they're going to be fluid like water. Most of the sort of blesses are quite sort of magic path specific. They kind of fit in. So if you go for earth, reinvigoration. Now reinvigoration means you're going to get 2 fatigue off you per turn. It's nothing to do with status effects, there's nothing to do with that. It's all about taking away your unit's fatigue. Because as units fight, they get more fatigued, and they reach a point where they can no longer fight because they're just simply too fatigued to do anything. Now if we go to 6, it's plus 3, 8 it's plus 4, and then when we get to 9, protection is plus 5 when blessed. Protection is your stat of how good your armor is. So anybody who's blessed will get protection of plus 5. Now that's very strong. Especially in earlier ages where armor perhaps isn't quite as common. Because, you know, people are mostly relying on like horrible wooden shields and stuff like that. If your protection is really high, your units are almost invulnerable to taking damage. Now astral, we get to level 4, magic resistance plus 1. Now magic resistance doesn't seem that much. You might be like, oh, everything else gets, you know, like a attack skill plus 2 or something like that. Magic resistance is very important, because especially when you go into the late game, in fact not even the late game, more towards the mid game, mages start to become a real powerhouse. Mages start to almost become more worth it than infantry. You could have a whole squad of infantry, and one mage could maybe take them out by the late game. In fact, not even a maybe. A mage could take out an entire army by himself if he's kitted out properly and is strong enough. So magic resistance is very important skill. And as you can see, it goes up very slowly in comparison to everything else, because magic resistance is such a valuable thing to have. Now at level 9 you get a thing called Twist Fate, and what Twist Fate does is whenever something's about to take fatal damage, it won't. It will twist fate and it will be completely fine. It's like having a really high semblance of luck. Now, death magic. Death magic is where things get quite interesting with the bless. Undying plus 5. What this means is any troops that are blessed, if their hit points go below 0, they will not die until they reach the negative number of your undying thing. So undying plus 5, they won't die until they reach negative 5 hit points. And this one actually goes up every single level of death magic as well, all the way to plus 9 or plus 10. Death magic level 9. Now that is insane. That means any of your troops can live until minus 10 hit points and still keep swinging. They will die, however, if they don't have any form of regeneration and stay below that HP when the battle ends, they will die. Because it's like It's like your god's power has given them the ability to keep fighting until their bodies are just broken completely beyond use and they just die right there. At level 9, however, you get death weapons. Now, what death weapons I think do is they cause the units to decay whenever they're hit by them. So if your units hit an enemy with a death weapon, they will age at a rapid pace and eventually decay and die. Basically, you know, kind of like what happens in Indiana Jones and the Lost Ark, where the guy's face just completely melts and turns to sand. Kind of like that. Not very nice. So let's just take that away. Now, nature magic. Nature magic is another good one, because at level 4 it gives your units a HP of +3, and this one also goes up by 1 per level. At level 9 you get regeneration. Now remember what I was saying about if you had death scale or death magic and you went up to level 9 or any level, even just level 4, so your units would have undying +5. So they'd be able to fight at -5 up till -5 HP. With a nature bless, they'd also have a maximum HP of +8 and an inbuilt regeneration. Now this is incredibly strong, because if you think about it, you can go to -5 HP, but you're going to be constantly regenning through the fight. So not only do you have more maximum HP points from having more HP overall, but the fact you have undying and regeneration, it means you can go into that undying stage and then regen back. Now these are just different bless things. Not all races have very good bless troops. Nifflheim is actually one of the ones who does have quite good bless troops, but that's neither here nor there. It's really whenever you go into a game by yourself, once you kind of get the hang of dominions, always go in, don't do anything, have a little look at all the units, everything you can do, and see where you can make improvements. Now let's go into blood magic. Blood magic at level 4 gives you strength. So every time you get more blood magic, you get more strength. Strength lets you deal more damage. At level 9 you get blood vengeance. Now what blood vengeance is, if someone kills your or is it if they do it's either kills or do damage. See, like, even I can't remember right now. Either kills or does damage to your sacred units, they take that damage back. It's a very, very strong skill. In fact, I think it might even be when they just do damage to them. It's a very, very strong skill. Now, we're going to leave our magic paths like this for now. You know, we're not really going to go into it. We're going to come back to that later. Now, I want to talk to you about Dominion. Oh, actually, before we go into Dominion, Blessing. If you go into the game, and you had, say, like 2 water magic and 1 death magic, there's a way in-game by using gems to empower your units to have a higher level of magic. Say, for example, you have started off with 3 water magic, and you use some water gems to empower your god to level 4. You will not get a water bless. Blesses all start at the beginning of the game, and any changes to the magic on your pretender god does not affect your blesses. It all just comes from what you put in from points at the start of the game. That's how they balance out nations that might have a really high gem income. So you can't just like make the game go on long enough and get every single bless in the world. No, that's not possible. Unfortunately, that'd be really good fun to try, but unfortunately that's not the thing. Anyway, let's go into Dominion. Now Dominion, it's all based around these things here. These candles, what they're affectionately known as. Now, what candles do is they're very, very important. They are the strength of your god's dominion. Dominion is incredibly important in Dominions, hence the name, because without any dominion on the world, game over. That's it, you're done. Your god is just gone forever, and they can't come back because nobody believes in them anymore. Now, the stronger your god's dominion, the more candles you have, the stronger is, the more easily your dominion spreads over time. For example, I think it's the number of candles you have is the percentage chance that your temples will automatically spread dominion. So say, for example, and that's per turn. So if you have 7 candles, I think it gives your temples a 70% chance of spreading your dominion per turn. Now that could be completely wrong, and if it is, I'd completely apologise. You know, there's so many different ways of you know, understanding what's happening in Dominions. The manual isn't always correct. It's mostly just due to what you see in the game. So if I am wrong, please leave that in the comments. I'm actually not completely sure if I am right about this, so if you can tell me, I would most appreciate it. For your first game, I would recommend that you have a Dominion of at least 6. It's no fun getting Dominion killed. Dominion killed is where you have no Dominion left, so therefore you lose the game. That's never good fun. Now, with your Dominion comes scales. Now, scales have 7 different values, from -3 to 0 to 3. Now, each scale has two different kind of aspects to it. For example, the first one, order or turmoil. If you left-click order, it will increase. If you left-click this one, it will turn to order, and that has the effects on your dominion from neutral, which is 0. So, for example, with one level in order, our income is increased by 5%, unrest reduction by +1, and random events -2%. Now, if I were to right-click instead, bring it back down to neutral, then go into turmoil, our income is -5%, our unrest reduction is -1, and events are +2. So you get less income, your people are harder to keep down for rebellions and stuff, and your chance of random events goes +2. Now you might be thinking, why would I want one of these negative things? Now, each scale costs 40. So if you increase a scale, it costs 40 points. To go to one level in order, costs us 40 design points. Now, think about how much we can get for that. For 40 design points, we can get we can get about 3 levels in magic for around about the same amount as a scale. Now that's not starting a new path. I'll go back up to the magic thing. If we start a new path, remember how I said it costs 8, then 16, then 24, etc, etc. When you start a new path, the 8 is actually what costs the new paths here. So it goes 8, and then 16, and then 24. So, you know, starting a new path, especially with something like a Titan, costs a lot of design points. It's something really quite difficult for you to do. Now, let's come back to our Dominion. So, the different things are order and turmoil. Order, you've already seen that. Productivity and sloth. If you have productivity, your income increases by 2%, and you get 15% more resources per level. Sloth reduces your income by 2% and your resources by 15% per level. Now we have, because we're Niffle, we start off, every race has their own kind of temperature they like. This is the temperature scale. Heat and cold. Every single step away from your race's preferred temperature decreases your income by 5% and your supplies by 10%. So, as the race of Nifflheim, in the early age, we love complete cold. Nothing else. Just all we want is cold. The next Dominion thing is growth and death. Now each level of growth you get increases your income by 3%, your supplies by 15%, and your population growth by 0.2% per turn. On the other hand, death reduces your income by 3%, reduces your supplies by 15%, and your growth by 0.2% per turn. Then there's fortune and misfortune. Every level of fortune increases the chance of random events happening by +5%, but increases the chance that those events are going to be good for you in some way by 15%. Whereas misfortune increases the event chance by 5%, and the chance that is lucky gets a -15% per level. The final one is magic and drain. So for every level in magic, you get research +1. That means your mages are doing 1 point more of research per turn per mage, which is pretty good. Whereas drain reduces the amount of research your mages do by 1 research point per turn per mage. So it can have a really big effect. Now these scales also have a little bit of synergies as well. So for example, in cold scales, if a land's really cold and you are, say, reptilian or cold-blooded, your troops will get fatigued faster. Same if your troops are outside of their preferred temperature scale. So say if we giants of Nifflheim were fighting in just a completely neutral province, you know, it's just kind of normal temperate climate, we would be getting 3 more fatigue per turn in combat from being outside of our temperature zone, which is never good. Growth scales mean that your troops have a less chance of getting old age afflictions every time it turns to winter. Now we'll get into that a little bit later on when we start talking about units, but I thought I'd at least mention it so people would see it. Death increases the chance that's going to happen. Obviously, fortune and misfortune increases the number of random events you get, and decreases or increases your luck depending on which way you go. Drain and magic scales affect every unit's magic resistance, so every level of drain increases a unit's magic resistance and increases the fatigue it costs to cast spells. The opposite is true for magic. So really, it's up to you really what kind of pretender you want. Now, I know I'm overflowing you with information here, but you need to know about this while you're making your pretenders. We're almost done. Don't worry. So there's 3 different ways you can start off your pretender. You can start off awake, which means your pretender is going to be there on the first turn, ready for action. This is where the creatures like the snakes or the dragons become really useful, because if they start awake at turn 1, they can start aggressively expanding, coming out, taking over territory left, right and centre from the first turn. If you had a mage, you might not want that. You might want to make them dormant, which means that they will sort of wake up in about a year's time. Now, a year in Dominions is approximately 12 turns. Every turn is about a third of a season. And obviously there's 4 seasons, so it's early, mid and late season. So early, mid, late spring, early, mid, late summer, early, mid, late autumn, and early, mid and late winter. Now approximately after that, give or take a few months, your dormant god will wake up. Now if you make them dormant, you get an extra 150 points. Now what's that? That's worth 3 scales, almost 4 scales, because each scale costs 40 for a positive scale. Now if you go imprisoned, it means your god will be able to get 250 points, 100 more than dormant, but they will escape in 3 years, which is 36 turns. That's a long time into the game, and it's more of a risk of how much you think your pretender is really going to affect the early game for you. Do you want them to be imprisoned and become out as a really powerful mage, a really powerful spellcaster? Do you want them to be imprisoned, have a really strong dominion with lots of great scales for you? Or do you want them to be awake from the start and be able to aggressively fight neutrals and take over provinces from the get-go? Now, what we're going to do here, to be honest, is I think we're going to have a dormant pretender. I think I'm going to give him quite a good bless, so we're going to have 4 points in water for the defense skill. We're going to have 4 points in earth for the reinvigoration. I'm going to get 4 points in nature for the HP. And in fact, I want to make it nature a lot better. I'm wondering how much I can get it up to. Now you'll notice we have negative design points at the moment. That's not too good. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take 2 levels in turmoil. And you might be like, why? Why are you taking 2 points in turmoil? You don't need to do that. It's really bad for you. Now, I'm not expecting to recruit very many giants as Nifflheim. Nifflheim's giants are very expensive in terms of resources, in terms of gold. So I'm not expecting to do that. So instead I'm going to take 2 levels in turmoil and 1 in fortune. All of a sudden, even though that we have more chances of events, the chances of them being lucky events is better. And the chance of you being able to get a good amount of gold from these events is quite a bit higher. So personally, that's what I quite like to do. And in fact, I'm even thinking of turning our god into an imprisoned god. Although he's still minus 13 points. So now we're thinking here, with our scales, have we been too greedy? Because right now we're going to have to take another level of turmoil in order to pay for all these scales. Now, this is a very, very, very expensive pretender. It might not be worth it, but let's find out. It's always fun. So I'm actually going to use the last bits of our design points. You see there, I increased death magic by 1, cost me 8 points. Make sure you're getting the most out of your design points, because right now, it isn't probably the best setup for Nifflheim, but it's one I'm going to be happy with. So once you're done, you can click OK. At any time you can view your nation's description to remind yourself what they're good at. So I'm going to click OK, and we'll name our god Loki. Now you can name them whatever you want, anything is fine. It's all just up to you. Now, you come into the game settings. There's a couple of different settings. World contents. Now, I personally would leave this completely normal for your first game. In fact, I rarely change any of these settings really, other than Thrones of Ascension, which we're going to go down to later. Now, world contents. It determines the number of starting provinces you have. On almost every normal game of Dominions, you will start with one province, unless it's actually been changed anywhere. You can change it by left-clicking or right-clicking it. I would say always just try and start with the one province, because it's the most authentic way of playing. Strength of independence is how strong the independent armies are. Every province that isn't owned by a god has an army of independents there, ready to fight, or rather that you have to fight and beat in order to take over the province. Now, I would definitely recommend that you make the strength of independence no more than 5, because even at 5, if you get very, very unlucky on World Gem, you could be surrounded by heavy infantry, and you won't be able to expand for many, many turns because you just can't get the forces together. So I would leave that where it is. Special sight frequency determines how often you're going to get magical sights. Magical sights are the things that give you gems for spell casting. Not all spells require gems, but many of the more powerful ones do. And if you want to make magical items, they require gems as well. Special sights can also be things like give you more gold, give you more resources from a province, etc, etc, let you recruit special units, stuff like that. And I would keep all of the multiples by themselves for now, because in your first game, the AI will always be able to find a way to outspend your gold. Now, what you've got to do is you've got to play smart against the AI. And if you play smart, you will always beat them 100%, but you can never give them more money, because if they're cheating, and they have a higher percentage of money, they will wipe the floor with you just with numbers. But it's okay, it's fine. Now, divine rules. I prefer to have random events as rare, because especially in single player games, if you're doing a play by email, you might want to make them common, and you can do that by left clicking. All of these settings can be changed by left clicking on them, and you can cycle through all the things. I would like to keep random events on rare, because with rare events, if you're just playing by yourself, then you don't want random events happening all the time. If you're doing a play by email and turns are coming very sporadically, then yes, having them on common would be actually quite nice. Now, I want to go over something I just forgot. Remember our candles for our Dominion? You don't really have to worry too much about the starting thing. You want them to be relatively high, but they don't need to be the highest in the game, because every 5 temples you have, so every province can have 1 temple. If you have 5 temples, your maximum level of Dominion will go up by 1. Which is good. That's really, really good. Gives you a really strong Dominion if you build a lot of temples. But temples cost gold, which you can use to recruit units, which you can use to build castles or laboratories. You know, gold is a very finite resource. Finite in the sense that you only get so much per turn, and you want to make sure you're using the most of it every single turn that you can. But it's alright for now, we're not going to worry about that. Now, story events, for your first game, I would keep disabled. Story events are incredibly overpowered sort of long event chains that happen for nations that can sometimes lead in some incredibly overpowered heroes, etc. for one of the nations, and can just kind of tip the balance completely. Getting an incredibly strong hero just isn't particularly fair, especially if you get lots of gold and stuff beforehand. Or if you get a really bad story event chain, they can completely ruin you. Now, score graphs are disabled. Score graphs is completely up for you. You can see how much income they have, approximately how much research they're doing, army size, etc, etc. And you know, it's up to you if you want to keep it on. I'm going to keep it disabled because I prefer it like that. Now, Hall of Fame. What the Hall of Fame is, it's like a hall of the people who've done the greatest deeds in the land. It takes commanders and sort of rates them out of 10 who's the most famous out of them all, and if they are famous and in the Hall of Fame, they get special bonuses to some of their skills. The skills itself are random, but it gives them special bonuses. Now, these are not to be confused with heroes, which are random event driven sort of commanders that spawn independently for every single nation. Limited unique artifact forging rate means that you can only make 1 artifact per month, aka 1 artifact per turn. So each turn is approximately a month. So you know, like there's 3 months in a season, etc. So yeah, you can only make 1 artifact per month. Now this helps you when you have some nations that really fast research get to a certain level of construction magic, which lets them make magical artifacts. Artifacts are not the same as regular magical items. You can have as many magical items as you want, as long as it isn't an artifact tier, which are unique sort of things. So there can only be one artifact of its type per game, you know, in the world at one time. So research, I'd like to keep on standard research just now, because any nation with incredibly fast researchers can get a massive boost from having it up high. For your first game, keep it on standard, and if you really want to experiment with what nations can do with magic, feel free to make a new one where you put research really high and go a nation that researches really fast and just see what happens. Now, the most important thing of the Divine Rules are the Thrones of Ascension. Now, this lets you set your victory type. You can either by basic, you will always win by conquering everything. If you conquer everything and there are no more gods left, then you win, because you're the only god left. Of course you would. But you can also get different victory things. Thrones of Ascension are specific points on the map. They are in one province each that you can take over, and you need a certain amount to win. For example, in this setting, you need 3 ascension points to win, and there's 3 ascension points in the game. That's because each level 1 throne gives you 3 points, level 2 gives you 2, and level 3 gives you 3. Now the mistake to make is, don't think that thrones are just kind of like they're just a point in the hill that you just hold and that's it. Thrones are incredibly powerful magical things, especially level 3 thrones. Level 3 thrones can have insane effects, like throwing the world into complete and utter darkness all the time. Causing everybody in the world to age at an accelerated rate, causing, you know, or it could cause nothing at all. Level 1 ones could give your, say, your troops a little bit extra fire resistance and maybe some fire gems per month. You know, it really depends what level of throne it is. Or it could cause like famines throughout the world, so everybody starts dying, or pestilence or something like that. You know, these are really powerful things that shouldn't be messed about with. You can win by victory points, you know, kind of the same as Thrones of Ascension, but victory points are usually around capitals. So if you own your capital, you own a different, or if you own a capital, if you own a different capital, or you own separate points on the map, then you win by victory points. I don't really like victory points as a way of playing. I prefer either go by Thrones of Ascension, so you have something to fight over, or just by conquering all. I usually play by Thrones of Ascension, to be honest. You can do victory by dominion, so it means like how much your dominion needs to spread. So you need 450 candles on the map in order to win. Or you can win by the number of provinces. You need to own 30 provinces in order to be crowned the victor. Victory by research. Accumulate enough research points and you'll win the game. So for your first game, just leave it on victory by Thrones of Ascension. And if you leave it like this, you'll need 3 Thrones of Ascension to win, and usually you can hold them well enough. So on the advanced, master password means that, you know, there's a password on your game. You can't get into the game or end the turn without putting in the password. You don't have to worry about that for single player, that's for multiplayer games. Renaming is not allowed. You can change that to so you can rename anybody you want. That's fine, you know, that's completely up for you. And then cheat prevention, well, it's mostly for multiplayer games and stops you from cheating. But, you know, that's up to you. I'll let you guys sort that out amongst yourselves. You know, I don't know any cheats myself, because, you know, I'm a pro player, obviously. But yeah, most of these options are just personal choice. You know, you can mess around with them a wee bit once you've got a few games under your belt. But yeah, once you're finished with that, you'll press OK, and you wait for the map to render. You create the world, and this is the start of the first game. This is spring in the first year of the Ascension Wars. Now I'm going to put up these the text here and let you guys read it. So I'm going to put that away now. Pause it if you want to read this. There you go. I have a great little one-liner where I just sort of talk about it in my other Let's Play series, and that takes me about 5 minutes. So I'm not going to do it this time. Now, with this, I am actually going to end the game here. This is the first sneak peek of our map, of our tutorial game. So this is going to be the end of part 1 here. Thank you all very much for watching, and I can't wait to see you next time. If you like this video, please like and subscribe. Leave a comment if I've made any mistakes, you know, and you want to, you know, go over something, or if you want to know something about in one of the future episodes. But until then, I will see you next time, and goodbye.